welcome to another Dwarven Tavern review. My name is Josh.
My name is Ian.
And today we're going to be reviewing Kaiju Crush by Fireside Games. This is a game that we got last year, I believe, at Gen Con. We played it a few times here at home, and we actually really enjoyed it. It was a really simple game.
Yeah, it's good. It's super fun. It's super easy to learn. It's not one of those games that's so complex that it takes 20 minutes to a half an hour to learn before you even get it playing.
Right.
Like setting up the board, using the cards, it all just kind of does its thing. There's only a couple things, but we'll get to that what we feel about some of the different things.
Yeah, so what we've gone ahead and done here is just set up the playing board, which you'll be able to see on our other camera. So right now it's set up by a 6x5 grid for 2 players. For 3 players, I believe it's 6x6.
Yeah.
And then 3
Each
to
of
4
the,
players or 4 players is 7x6.
Yeah, because the monsters' movements are... How you move the monsters are these little cards. And depending on how many players you have, actually changes the amount of those cards in play. So if you have 2 players, you actually can't use the Stomp and Charge, which I'm not sure why those 2 in particular. It might make it too easy to actually get what you're trying to achieve, which I think is relatively interesting. But what I find the most interesting about the actual movement cards is when you use your move, because each character gets 1, you actually swap it out with a group move card.
Which is right there.
The group move card is... everyone can use it. Everyone has access to 1 card in specific, and only you can use your card. So, for example, Trample is the card that is the group move. It allows you to move to one of the corners around where your monster is, which I would be here. So it would allow me to move there or there. Pretty straightforward. But my dash card allows me to move 2 over. So I don't hit here, I hit here. And when I move to that, if I were to use my dash, I would play one of these, which would claim that territory. Which your goal is basically claim it all, or claim as much as you can. Which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, correct.
You literally just destroy everything, which is fun.
So to start, we had our, you put your player card in with the rest of the tiles, and that determines a random starting location. So Ian's starting down here as Draximus.
Which is claimed.
And I am starting up here as Mecha Kaiser, which will also be claimed for me as my starting position. So, as he just moved, I have the ability to either move as a leap function, which is kind of moving in an L, the way a knight would, or
you're right.
The knight would in chest. Yeah. Or I can also use the trample ability to move at an angle. So, in this case, you either fight each other when you land on the same tile, or if you're adjacent to each other. So in this case, I can move, since I have to move in an L, I move up 2 and over 1, which will put me adjacent to Ian, and then this will initiate combat for the piece that I laid on.
Yeah.
And combat is really the one thing in here that we kind of had our issues with.
Yeah. It's not... Okay. Just straight up, combat's not bad. It's a perfectly fine way of doing it. However, I'm not... Fire Breath is really strong. Like, Fire Breath is really good. Because you have 5 total things you can do. Fire Breath, Claw, Tail, Kick, and Spikes. Pretty straightforward. Claw, Tail, and Kick, that's a standard rock, paper, scissors. So, I believe I brought 5.
Yeah, I'm 1 short.
Okay, so if I played 1, it'd be Claw.
Mine's Claw too.
No, so we tied, so it does nothing, yay! So,
let me shuffle these.
I got 4 claws and a tail. Okay, game.
Well,
I see how it is.
Everything but the Fire Breath, the one that
we
actually need to talk about.
So, if I played tail, and
there it is.
he played kick,
or
so these are no show and then you showed. So if I played Tails, he played Kick, which I don't even think you have a Kick.
No.
I would win that, and I would win combat. And if you win combat, you get a combat token, which you don't see what you get until you draw the token, which I don't know if I like. It's definitely interesting. I got a 3, so ha!
All of these tokens are numbered 1, 2, and 3. The winner gets the combat token randomly. So it's kind of random on the points that you get towards victory.
Yeah. Which, it's definitely interesting, because if you're just getting destroyed, because again, you draw a random hand, and then you play, and if you're, most of these outcomes are completely random. That's one of the things I have an issue with the rock, paper, scissors, and because we have the claw, kick, and tail. Those are standard, one beats another. But then you have spikes. Let's find a spikes card real quick. He says, as he doesn't find one real quick. Do you have all the spikes?
That one. That one?
Of course it is, yeah. So the spikes card, that is beaten by claw, tail, and kick. All 3, claw, tail, and kick, beat spikes. But spikes is the only way to counter fire breath. Fire breath beats everything but spikes. So if you have fire breath in your hand, combat starts, you should probably play fire breath.
Yeah.
Because it just beats everything.
And it got to the point where one of us had, I think, 3 fire breath cards in our hand.
In a row.
And you have to win 3 combat rounds in a row to claim the space.
Yeah. So if you have 3 fire breaths, pretty likely you're gonna win.
Yeah. So in this case, Ian has claimed the space as his. He's going to take his card here.
The same one that has the tails on it, because tails suck.
And he's going to pick up his player tile.
Your player tile specifically.
And then that counts his as part of his territory. Now each one of these tiles have a number attached to it except for the parks, which have no value. This is part of the final score token, which is why each player takes thereon along with the fighter tokens.
Yeah.
So this game also has objective cards, which are entirely optional, which I actually kind of like that they're optional, because for our first game, we didn't even really use objective cards.
Yeah, because if you have a set of rules, like, for example, maybe one of those real quick. Yeah. Because if you have Hoarder, it's the player in the group with the most tiles in a group gains 2 points. Not bad. So you gain 2 points if you have the most tiles in one group out of the group. If that was the only way to win,
right,
that would not be all that great. And there's only 2 points, which that one battle net me 3. So these are definitely optional, but they're a nice bolster to your score, which I think is pretty cool. Because there are some that are really good, and some that, like, in 2 points, not crazy, not, it's not game breaking. That if you actually got 2 or 3 of those, it would definitely lean in your favor.
Right.
But it's not going to just crush everybody. If you lost terribly on the actual game board, you're not really going to be able to completely win based on those cards, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah,
you might think so differently.
No, I agree. So the objective cards are broken up into series A, B, and C. A is essentially for each space that you have. B is more like it has to deal with your tiles, your actual game pieces on the board. C deals with movement, so it's like if the player that's made the most, dash movements, depending on the card, he gets those extra points at the end of the round.
Which honestly, I wish they had more of those.
Yeah.
Because we only have 6
movement cards.
No, the objective cards.
Yeah.
6 front and backs. We got 12 total.
Yeah.
Honestly, having 10 or 15 of those front and back, that'd be pretty good. Especially if you could, if you did rely entirely on those and you had 5 objective cards, and that was the only way to score points, that could be an interesting way to play it.
Yes, exactly. And so you also see with card D relates to the number on each of the board pieces. So card D is just extra points for whoever has, let's say, oil refinery is electricity. So it's just extra points for whoever has the most of that card.
Yeah.
Which, it's just adding more. It's just adding more ways to win, more ways to just get points at the end of the game.
Which isn't, but importantly, it's not the only way to play.
No, it's not.
Which I like the fact that the game, to me, it genuinely feels like you're crushing everything, fighting other monsters. That's what you're actually playing, and the objectives are kind of secondary.
Yeah, like I said, we didn't even use
what I kind of expect in a Kaiju Crush game. I expect destroying the map as the objective.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one more card we're going to go over before we get to how to actually win the game and the scoring of all the points. And that's what we call special ability cards. So you deal 2 of these out to every player, and then the player gets to choose which one of these he wants to keep. When we were playing the game, we kind of thought that these were relatively irrelevant to the scoring of the gameplay. Like, for instance, this one is Power Jump. And I can only use this once per game.
Yeah, you can only use any of them once per game.
Yeah, so Power Jump allows me to treat any face-up city tile like a park and move without claiming. So if I moved here to Library, I can treat that like a park, which you cannot claim, and I can just move to a different space.
Yeah, which that's decent, but once per game?
Yeah.
Like, swap this one, for example, Momentum Shift. It allows you to swap a movement card with another player. That's really cool.
That's really good.
Once, it's like this is not like a 4-turn game or a 5-turn game. Mm-hmm. This is more like a 15 to 30 turn game. When you have 4 players, you got dudes running all over the map. You're getting in multiple engagements, and sometimes there's just one piece of land you just can't quite reach because your movement won't let you. Which, that's really good in that very specific scenario. But once,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, if it had an amount of turns recharge, or you could only use it again after you get another piece of land, or after you win a battle, or some sort of recharge your abilities, because they're not that strong.
Something that's just specific to that card.
Yeah, because swapping your movement with another player's movement, you literally swap. If I use my dash, I have to swap with the group card. So I already do that actively. So this is not strong enough to be a once per game ability. So I don't even think when our first game, we didn't even use any of the special ability because they just weren't really important.
We didn't do it in our first game, and by the time we were playing our second game, we had already used them,
with like first 3 turns.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm gonna use this.
Which is our fault. Which is probably our fault, but still.
Yeah. I'm sure that, they could seriously come in clutch. Like, the switching movement, that could be the absolute perfect thing to use in a very specific occasion, but I really don't think that's gonna come up enough. I don't.
No.
So that those cards are, to me, they're irrelevant.
Yeah, I agree.
But honestly, other than that, there's not a whole lot in the game that does feel irrelevant. A lot of it feels optional.
No.
But in not a bad way, which is actually pretty rare for a board game.
Now, if I remember, you had an issue with Draximus's character abilities.
Because Draximus is overpowered. just straight up, I'm just gonna say it. Because after you draw a territory marker, or after drawing territory markers before battle, discard and redraw up to 5. So you can look at your hand, which is, you straight up look at what you can do in combat and say, no, I don't think that's a strong enough hand. I don't have enough fire breath. And you get to redraw it.
Yeah.
And that's Nerf Draximus.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we forgot to go over. Each character has a different kind of ability score. So, for instance, my character can draw 6 tokens instead of 5 for combat. So that just gives me 6 combat cards instead of 5.
Which is good.
Yeah, it gives me a one level advantage, but that's about it.
That's not Draximus.
No.
That's not a redraw your entire hand.
Yeah, well, and then there's Galithor, which is kind of like a weird dinosaur thing. And then Stegonox. There's also another character. And Stegonox wins ties on claws, kicks, or tail abilities. So if you...
Specifically ties.
Yes, ties only. Which is pretty good that it wins on that. And then Galathor ties on Fire Breath and Spikes.
Which that's really good. Like, honestly, it's Draximus, Galathor, and then the other two.
Yeah.
Actually, Draximus, Galathor, Kaiser, and then Steganox.
Yeah.
Would be my rating. Because being able to redraw your entire hand because it doesn't have enough Fire Breath is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Just completely. And like Galathor winning ties on Fire Breath, that's really good because you know they're gonna play Fire Breath.
Yeah.
So that's good, but two of the characters, Mecha Kaiser and Steganox, they don't have abilities on par with those two. Like, winning ties on Claw?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna play Fire Breath. I'm probably never gonna, if I don't have to play those three in the middle, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Fire Breath is way too strong. That's just how that is. But, you know, if you ever look at a kaiju fight, Fire Breath typically wins.
Yeah. Especially when it's shot right down somebody's throat.
Yeah, truth. Yeah. Fire Breath typically wins. It beats Lightning Breath, it beats Claws, it beats Flying. It beats most things. Godzilla has proven many, many, many times.
Yes. So for the end of the game, the scoring is actually very simple, and that's something that we like about it.
Oh, yeah.
All you do is take your amount of game tiles that you've gotten the entire time. Each one has a number assigned to it, which is the numerical value of the points. And the other group is for the objective cards if you choose to use them. And then you take the number on the tile and the number of fight tokens that you happen to have and add them all up, and that's the winner.
Yeah, literally that simple. You're like, okay, I've got the rest of the board. Okay, I've got 8, 9. That's my points. That's it.
Yep.
You're done scoring. You don't have to go.
numbers.
You don't have to have an Excel spreadsheet. You don't have to go over 27 different things. It's just that easy.
It's that simple.
Yeah, I personally like that because the fun of the game is in the game and not after.
Right.
So if you're sitting there for 20 minutes, you know, tiling up your points, which there are games that do that. So other than that, it's like you've got the objective cards. I forgot what they were called there for a second. You got the objective cards. You get some points from those, which that's if you use them.
Yeah.
So
what do you give it?
honestly, I'm gonna give it a super strong 4.5 out of 5. Like if it wasn't for the purple cards being once per games, which honestly you could literally just not care about that one.
Yeah, you can just house roll.
And you could just house roll it, and it probably wouldn't be any issue. But the once per game cards, I feel like those are super weak, and a couple super minor things. But other than that, the actual playing the game is really straightforward. I really like the fact that the movement cards are actually a way that you can fight your opponents.
Yep.
Because I haven't seen that done before. That's completely new to me. Again, like my biggest complaints is there needs to be more game, which I want more stuff. I want more monsters. I want more tiles. I want more actual cards, like with these little panel things. I want more of those. The combat's kind of weird. Fire Breath is really strong, which kind of too much so, and I think that's a bit of a drawback because I literally just play Fire Breath.
Yeah.
If I have Fire Breath in my hand, that's what I use, and that's it. So, Fire Breath is too strong. The special ability cards are too weak, which I think is... If this was Fire Breath, that'd be great. Once per turn, Fire Breath. Done. Easy. Like, that would be great. But, again, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So, with those super minor... Like, those are really nitpicking issues. Like, genuinely. The game is easily strong enough to bypass those faults. So, I 4.5. That's...
I agree with everything you said. No. You could have more tiles, you could have more characters, more movement cards, and then that's just wanting more stuff and wanting to play with more people. If you had more tiles, more movement cards, more characters, you can play up to 6, 8, maybe more people. So
yeah, if you could have a group of 10 people, like have a gigantic board completely cover the table with just pieces and just rump about and destroy everything, that'd be super fun.
Yeah,
I think that'd be great.
So I agree. 4.5 out of 5 axes. That's one of our highest rated games in a while.
Oh yeah.
So, if you really like this game, which we did, be sure to check out the other games by Fireside Games. Think of their website's firesidegames.com. They make a lot of really fun, really simple games like this that are just great for a short, good time.
And I don't think a single one of their games was difficult to learn. Like, none of them are hard to play, which is a great thing because board games are not something that you just have 1,000 of or anything. We don't have a problem. But you don't just pull out a board game and say, hey, let's spend a half an hour learning this and then eventually play it.
Yeah.
You want to play the game. This is definitely one of those games, you open the box, you throw it on the table, and it just kind of explains itself as you go, which is super good.
Yep. So the simplicity is probably its biggest strength.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, it's a Kaiju Crush.
Yeah.
You're destroying things. It should be relatively simple. So with a strong 4.5 out of 5 axes, Kaiju Crush from Fireside Games, one of our favorites. So, on the behalf of the entire cast and crew of the Dwarven Tavern, I am Ian Goins.
And I'm Josh.
And we wish to you once for nothing but adventure. And at first I feared it.
Then I charged.
We'll see you next time.
Then